May, I don't, officially anyways, I don't think it's gonna be a problem, but I'm just saying, it's unfortunate. I don't think we'll have four.
Is everybody not in tonight?
Well, we know for a fact that, Kate is ill and Jeremy will not be here.
Well, I was hoping to hear from him.
And
with the
Scott
fire
has
authority.
been working midnight, so.
That's right, he's on night.
He's in bed, yeah, so.
We haven't heard from Jimmy?
No, so he's kind of the wild card, I'm not sure,
Well, we're live now, just so you know.
okay, I'll give it like one. Just now, 5:30.
Jonathan, let me know when you'd like to meet,
Okay.
because if we're gonna do this year, I need to get my stick.
We need to do a tomorrow, because I have to go to this fire thing, but I also have Thursday afternoon free.
Let me just double check. And Mayor, can I add one small thing to this,
What would you like to talk about?
water bills?
Oh.
Either one of those works, Jonathan.
Well, because, it's not on the agenda,
Okay.
but I think it's something if you wanted to mention.
No, I have an opinion that I would like to offer.
If you can wait till next week, if you want to public comment, or we can add it to the agenda.
Oh, we can,
But
that's,
if it's timely, we can certainly.
no, it can wait till next week. Can you add that to next
Up
week?
to you, Mayor.
No.
Either one. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Stressing me out.
Too many options.
You can also,
That's
it's
why I
not
gave it
that
to you.
important to like, you don't have to have it like all set.
No.
If you wanna like freelance.
They do it
up there.
they do it for planning.
Yeah.
They just like
Okay.
to have some idea of what size room.
Because I'm like, I don't know what this is, but maybe I should go to that
Well,
one.
what you can
Because I
do,
don't
Janine,
know.
what might be helpful is go on the website, the
Okay.
CML website, and they'll have the detailed program there,
That will be helpful.
and that will help you.
do
Yes, that's just the actual registration form.
Okay, when do you need this?
It's just open registration, so next week or two.
Okay, that's.
Yeah, there's time,
Oh, I'd like to do it. I'm pretty sure that's what the other thing I meant to check.
and I'll get you a registration form to fill out. It's just
Where do
easier to
you-
fill it out on paper.
Yeah,
and
no, it
then-
makes
then I
sense.
log you in and pay for
Cool.
it, so.
That's not bad. I'll have a kid here that'll take care of the dogs.
It's June 18th to 21.
Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Chief, how are you?
Mayor, how are you guys?
Good.
Chief?
Well, it is 5:32, and I would like to welcome everyone to the March 4th, 2024 Idaho Springs City Work Session. We have 3 items on the agenda tonight. And first thing to kick it off is the Block 57 multifamily housing project update.
Mayor, may I make a suggestion?
Sure,
Since we have Gary.
that is a
here,
great suggestion.
Person, maybe take that item.
Gary, come on up. Yeah, heck yeah. Look at this first, and by the way, I'm not a mountain bike guy, but boy, does that look interesting.
That's actually
We
meant
thought-
to slow you down.
We thought the mayor should be the
Is there
first
one
one
that's
to try
being
it,
built
don't you
there
think, Gary?
already?
There's a
Yeah.
wall.
If I were going any slower, I'd be going back.
Yeah, this is designed to kind of slow people down before they get into two-way traffic.
I was reading about the safety.
It's a safety issue.
Yeah.
It looked like a safety issue, but
Mhm.
All right,
Okay, well, I had prepared a brief memo, which was in the packet of materials, so I'll just go over some major points. Essentially, Gary is here from Comba. And, we're just gonna provide a bit of an update on progress in Virginia Canyon Mountain Park, and then there's a few, requests for action. So there's been quite a lot going on, as you maybe seen and heard, there's construction's nearly complete on the first downhill portion of trail for bikes in the park, and there's several hiking portions as well. And as work has progressed and we're getting kind of near this phase being completed, new opportunities have come up, and there's interest in updating the master plan and the trail plan in that master plan. I'm going to share in the packet, there was some things, but I'll pull them up on the screen just in case anyone's watching or anything like that. Okay, So the current master plan or trails in the master plan, is shown on the screen. And we're proposing to do an update to the trails, and there's a few reasons for that, but that would be this page here, which is not quite maybe as easy to read on a small screen up there. But essentially, there's a few reasons for it: to improve trail layouts, to increase connections and for trails, potential new access points into the park, and also provide additional access for emergency services, maintenance, and the like. So we're asking whether this could be adopted as a new trail plan, and I'll get to that in a bit, but essentially some of the key factors would be creating new sort of expert black advanced trails on the east side of the park, a new intermediate trail going to be the center of the park that's more geared towards easier terrain, and then importantly the access multi-use access trail on the west side of the park. Many of these are kind of just it's concept master planning. They rely on additional funding and scope of work. The next phase of next phase of construction. But the key one that we'd like to request constructing this phase would be that emergency.
Is that number 4 on this
That's
one?
number 4 on this map, and then if you go here, it's kind of zoomed in more later in that packet. It would go off of Virginia Canyon Road and connect into the hub that's kind of in the middle of the park.
It's the red line on
That
that
red
map.
line on that map. And I don't know, Gary, do you want to kind of
This is
describe
the
it
one
in
that
more
also
detail?
crosses over, and goes down to Two Brothers as well.
No, that would be the extension of that black dotted line, I believe.
Okay, so that, okay.
And there is a potential you can see there for like a blue black kind of connection, potentially if a trailhead or something in the future was created. But I don't know, Gary, if you have anything specific to say on this one.
Well, I think the key really is the access route, being able to get people and equipment in and out to the hub, which is the center of the system. It's something that we always like to know we've got those emergency access routes and those construction and maintenance routes. And this plan just had not had that to this point. It was something that we had struggled with in the early iterations. We've been ideating up there, since 2017, 2018. I think we had the first update to the plan was 2019 or 2020. And so this is just kind of an extension of continuing to kind of get to know the terrain up there, finding options that maybe aren't optimal, but are workable. When we did the original plan, Tony Boone was staying pretty much in optimal. And so now we're kind of working in workable in some of these instances. And some of it's just been, in response to additional land becoming available. With the original master plan, there were some additional parcels that were secured at that time. That's why we had the second addendum. And then the majority of this plan update does take a look towards the land swap with the Youngs as well, and sort of what we would do given all that.
For this emergency access trail, it says a minimum of 5 feet. Is a minimum of 5 feet enough to get, if you had to get some sort of emergency vehicle up there, or?
Yeah, that's something that we want to verify with police and fire as well, that what equipment that they would be getting down that road. But typically 60 inches is enough to get a gator side by side, which is actually pretty big for most trail systems to have even that much access.
Well, I was surprised because I thought, wow, that's kind of wide, and that's a minimum. So you have room to go bigger if you needed to?
We can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gary, I'm just curious, what do they have on Floyd Hill? Do you know?
Nothing.
Okay, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Well, what we have on Floyd Hill is an old wagon road that was actually Floyd's. That is in various states of disrepair and usability. But when we were doing construction up there, we were definitely using that access road that goes up in there. There's parts of it that are extremely steep, and you have to have a 4-wheel drive vehicle to get up in there. But it is a similar concept.
Yes, if you don't have the access road, are you relying on like more like search and rescue type, like?
No, I mean, we
people,
typically,
or-
there are sort of single track options. Blackhawk, has, I forget what the name of this thing is, basically a motorcycle, but it's a two-wheel vehicle, with really fat tires on it, it sits very low. And then they, purchased a litter that works, in tow behind that
Oh,
as well. So they can actually navigate, fairly narrow, maybe not full on 12-inch wide single track with obstacles.
We were talking to Chief about that recently, that they make a litter kind of thing for, like e-bikes.
Just for this, for sure.
There's a lot, when I look at this new plan, there's a lot of trails that I can see, and just having been at some of them, like, we really need to have the access to be able to get in there.
Yeah,
Because I think this is gonna be very popular.
Oh, I do too.
the trail system as a whole,
Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
God, yes.
absolutely, and being able to get in and out, and it really is, there are, hope that you don't have those big emergencies, they do happen from time to time. We've been very pleased with the new system at Blackhawk, that it's been, no actual rescues there, and
Well, that's
we
great.
started in 2020, our first trail opened September 2020. So yeah, we're 3 full riding seasons of some fairly similar trail and aggressive trail up there. And so far so good.
Yeah, I want to applaud the thought of additional parking here on Two
Yeah,
Brothers.
yes, 20 extra.
But because I think this is going to be loved to death. I think it's going to be wildly popular.
I don't think the parking we have in town is enough.
That's exactly where I
No,
was
that's our
going.
biggest concern right now.
And I think this will help. And also, I'd love to be wrong, but I could see us, and it's such a need for parking that Riverside becomes one way, just in an effort to, park additional cars. I know that might be a little controversial, but I could see the need being great enough that's.
This is where we need a trolley and parking all along, like a trolley with a bike rack.
I bet you we get there.
I think we're gonna
eventually.
need it.
So anyways, thank you for the thought and planning of additional parking up here on Two Brothers. I think that makes a lot of sense. I saw it on there and I think it's pretty conservative, to get 20 more cars.
I had another
And
question.
to answer your question earlier, there is an extension of the black and white line that goes down to
Yeah.
Two Brothers.
Yes.
Yeah.
But then you're right, there is also another multi-use act, this trail right here. Right?
Right. Yeah.
So there is actually a multi-use trail in there as well to open up that additional parking.
Yeah, that's what, because I see where it crosses Virginia Canyon, but it's still listed as like a blue-black bike trail, but if the multi-use trail, that means, people have places to park. And then it's just a little more of a hike.
Right. Which is what you're out there to do anyway. Right?
Exactly.
And this actually, I think, is relatively safe for loading and unloading it. There's not a lot of traffic on this road.
No,
Super wide,
probably be safer than Riverside right now.
probably.
My other question is, I see how it talks about using the gondola as some of the, the moving of people and bikes. Do we have an idea of when that is supposed to break ground or supposed to happen?
And they said they need 14 months from the time they're funded, so that clock hasn't started yet.
And,
Okay.
and
At least 14
I
months.
realize that question was directed at Gary, but I just want you to know, we in no way have leveraged any part of this mountain bike park that is counting on. the
Oh, well, that's why I
gondola.
asked, because it listed as part of the people and bike moving process. And so I was like, oh, is there some update that we don't know about where the gondola
No,
sits?
we wish there was.
And that wasn't really like poking at you, just
No,
wondering if you had information that I did not.
I do not, I wish I did. But no, we don't have an update yet.
But, I think it's something it'd be great if it happens, but I just want you to know that the city didn't put anything out there that was dependent.
Okay, good.
on-
No, the
on
trail
that.
system will work just fine without it.
Well, it looks like it when you look at all the things that are up and down and,
Right.
and keeping the bikes and
That,
people
that's been
separate.
our North Star from the beginning, is that it's a municipal trail system that needs to work regardless of the set of projects.
Mhm.
So
We did work, do you want, just briefly talk about the work you guys did with CPW to make sure these new trail alignments are good for the sheep and everything and?
Yeah, for sure. If you don't know, CPW's main concerns in terms of wildlife up there was extreme winter habitat for bighorn sheep. There's basically 2 areas of that, and we've got them listed on that map, bottom right corner and then kind of middle left. So those are the 2 areas that they are most concerned. They're obviously the southern facing sunny, places where there aren't people. Although I think that herd is probably fairly used to people at this point.
They hang out on Wall Street a lot.
They're in my yard.
That's- So when we started to look at the proposal from the land swap with the Young family, we saw the opportunity to bring that black and white line down Gilson Gulch. And that really kind of changed the thinking about that whole eastern side of the property. It used to be such a jagged ownership line that it was hard to do anything with that. We just kind of stayed away from it. But if we make Gilson Gulch, the actual, I assume the gulch itself, the boundary line, that really opens up some new ideas for us. And so now we were looking at exiting over there on that southeastern side of the parcel. And that's what we wanted to go back and check with CPW, who's been involved with this since the very beginning. So we got their district wildlife manager, and then they have a regional trails coordinator with CPW. The 2 of them came out with our trails director and looked at the land, looked at the map, looked at the proposal. Actually wound up standing in one spot right around where the 15 is, right above where it says Bighorn Sheep, and just spent an hour standing right there talking about it. The areas that they're concerned about are those areas. We had to move one potential trail out of there. I think we either deleted it or moved it up a little bit higher. So just trying to keep those continuous tracks there in those 2 spots so that they'll have a place to get warm in the winter.
We also committed to CPW in the grant that we would close the trails during lambing season if it became a concern.
Right.
And that's something that we would do. We are supposed to have annual meetings with them.
Correct.
Just to talk about things. And so far it's been working really well, so.
I don't think that's a bad thing to do.
No, we like to stay in touch with them. They have good information.
The dollars and cents ask, we got 49,000 and we got 21,000. And I think in the scheme of things, it's a nominal amount to make it safer. But also I look at payback. So I'm only saying number 1 are people. So to make it safer is very important. But I'm also justifying the additional cost by saying, I know for a fact these people don't just come here and ride the bike. I mean, they're probably going to have something to eat, get something to drink. Money turns over in our community, and I think this is going to be wildly popular, hence my concern about parking. And I'm saying that I think it would be money well spent to have not only a fun, but a safe mountain bike park, and the city will eventually be rewarded with the sales tax, to pay for this. So
it will also save time and money over the life of the project from just a maintenance standpoint.
Yeah,
just being able to get people and equipment in there and out of there, quickly.
Well, the difference between the necessity for machine built versus you can get people up there and do it without the machines.
Yeah.
Also makes a difference.
Yeah.
Almost everything on the right-hand side, the east side of this now, the black and red lines especially, we're planning to hand build nearly all of that. So that'll be cheaper.
And I'm sorry to editorialize, but I just want to check and see how you feel about the additional expense. It's about $70,000 more.
Yeah, and that's with this and the emergency. Yeah, I did talk to somebody about who likes mountain biking, and they said something like this would be quite iconic and would
Very
bring
much so.
people in and would increase usage. So I think in that way, the benefit to the city of bringing more people.
But this
And
is
it's
also a safety feature, right?
It is very much a safety feature. This won't be all that much fun to ride. It'll be more fun to look at, I think, than to ride. But if you're familiar with where this will be, and if you've seen the start of the wood up there, it's right at the mouth of Rosa Gulch. It's right where we expect the main trailhead to be at the bottom. So as you enter the trail system, just before you hit the single track and start onto the new trail, it's gonna be right there. I mean, you'll be looking at it as you walk up. And it's also in the tracker where the gondola is. So people getting on the gondola, that's the first thing they'll see in the trail system is this corkscrew feature.
I'm good with it, 70,000. It is a big chunk, but in the scheme of building, and particularly right now with building costs, to me, doesn't seem like a big chunk to add parking and add safety, which, you know, we definitely need to always be on the lookout for that.
And while we're talking about parking, we are updating, we did a parking map. I looked at it, it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, the last time we looked at it. So we're updating that. That will be something that we incorporate into the trails maps that show where all the parking is in town. Everything from over by Forest Service, all the way down to practically the tunnels, and everything in between. And so we know that there's been some changes to where those parking spots are in the last 2 years. But we do want to try to be a partner as well in getting people to park in appropriate places.
We appreciate that because that is one of our biggest pain points.
Yes, it is.
And so anything that is going to add to it, we have to work together.
Right.
Or it's gonna get ugly.
Yeah, which we don't. We don't want to get started off on the wrong foot. We've been working on this for a long time. Last thing we want to do is have a bunch of mountain bikers descend on town in opening weekend and just be everywhere. I think some of that is inevitable, unfortunately, but as much as we can do to try to educate and manage and prepare for that, the better. And then ultimately, we're looking at having a couple of new parking garages here at some point. But
Yeah, really.
it's going to be between here and there that we have to really manage.
Gary, this emergency access trail, that's gonna be constructed with power equipment. And large.
At the 49 grand feature, yes, and that
So
allows us to do that with the paid crews that are up there now.
Yeah, so that's another advantage is we've already got the contractor mobilized, the contractors winding down on the
Yeah,
downhill.
they'll
mountain
knock
bike
that out in a
trails.
week or two.
So they can
So you don't
move
have to
right,
bring them back
you don't
up.
have mobilization
mobilization.
costs. The additional trails that Gary's talking about that will be constructed by hand, of course, it's mobilizing volunteers and limited power equipment. So this is kind of the timing's right as well, we believe. And it's important once this park gets up and running that we have a quick way to get into the hub.
And it's also, I mean, it's a dual purpose, right? It's open to the public, it's walkable, it's another access.
Another access off Virginia Canyon, yep, all that. Gary, while you're here, do you want to just mention that additional hiking trail that Kamba created, the loop at the top, or the connection that was made
Over Hillman's Peak?
Yeah.
The whatever we're calling it, Harmon's Peak?
Yeah.
Oh, I like this. It's kind of a better ring.
Harmon's Peak, it does ring a little bit, we can use that. We
Call
can
me
use that.
crazy.
So there's the main
It needs a
4 mile uphill, or the main 4 mile hiking trail, which is also an access for mountain bikes,
Scroll down a
uphill
little bit,
access. But then there's a spur off of that from the hub, right?
Other down.
Gary?
Yeah, so the original plan, yeah, scroll up, whichever way lets me see down.
Is this off 11th?
It is, no.
North, south.
Where are we? Still a little further. See the hub area, the orange line coming out of hub area? It's that orange line. Yeah. So the original plan called for that hiking only spur from the hub up to the front peak. This is fun to describe. So where that red dot was, no, that's further down. So where the bend is there, where you've got black, orange, and blue all together.
Yeah.
I think
Just below
I think
hub
that's
area?
the peak. Right there.
Okay.
That was the original terminus for that orange trail, which was hand cut and was just hiking only both directions. And when we were out there last year with Youth Corps, we had the opportunity to go ahead and bring it back down the front side so that it connects here.
Oh, okay.
So that you can go, the green one is the low grade climbing trail for hikers both ways and bikes uphill only. So as you're going up, you can go up to the hub and then come back on that hike and see, get a view shed. It's actually one of the better view sheds up there. And then just come back down and go back down rather than going all the way back up to the hub and coming all the way back down here. So it puts in a loop, which everybody would prefer to be loops as opposed to outbacks. And it adds, you can actually do it the other way too. You can just do the steeper side past the 7 up to the red dot and around. And save yourself from going all the way to the hub if you just want to go straight to the view shed.
And that's already open, correct?
Yeah, that's there and working. We had that last year. So we should probably get it incorporated on the plan since we added it last year. Yeah, it was just a little fun project that we were able to do when we had some couple of weeks of youth corps up there with us. So we went and knocked it out. We're good for that kind of stuff.
All right.
It's actually hard to see when you're on the trail that we opened. Coming up on 2 years ago, isn't it? We opened. Good Lord. Huh?
It's 2022.
Yeah. So as you're climbing up that towards the hub, until we get a sign there, it's actually kind of hard to detect because the first couple of steps are hand placed stairs out of rocks, and then it bends off and takes off on single track. But it's easy to miss right now. Blends in so well. But signage is something we're working on as well.
Well, anything else on the biking?
I don't think so. It sounds like we will move forward with getting these on the meeting for next week to actually take action.
All right. Is there anything that we can make more clear or anything for that meeting that needs to be done?
Yeah, I think that second, this one is actually very good. Because it shows the difference of what you originally did and what you've added to it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're working on our map making skills. So we're getting there. We've got to where we can do this level. Now it just needs to be a little more clear. I've asked them to take the trees, the satellite imagery off the back. So there's a version where you can just see the colored line routes and you're not fighting through all the greens and beiges and that kind of stuff. Getting there.
All right. If there's nothing further, I think we will stick with Andy's idea about rearranging the schedule a little bit and ask for Kelly to come up to talk about fire code stuff. So Gary, thank you.
All done with me? Right on.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Good. So, till next week.
You got it. Or Wednesday night. Did you guys want me to come up for Wednesday too? Or want me to zoom in for the
Planning commission?
Yeah.
I think it's an email.
Because we're gonna be up here Thursday.
It would be great to have you just listen in if you would, and
Happy to.
maybe be there in case questions come up.
Yeah.
That'll really just be
More of an update recommendation.
Yeah, exactly. Just make sure they're staying on board. And then we've got the fundraising meeting Thursday night.
Thursday night, yeah. 3 times this week.
All right. Wow.
Well, that's why I'm trying to make it twice. Okay, I'll zoom in on Wednesday.
Well, Gary, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Gary.
Hey, Kelly, welcome. Welcome.
See you. Did you get your bike?
Oh, wherever you'd like to
I
sit.
heard you got your bikes.
Thanks for your time. My intent of this is to answer any questions you have already on the evaluation document and to ask for a specific work session for an hour or two to go over stuff that we have gone through and we're prioritizing for what we think it needs to go, the direction it needs to go.
Well, I appreciate it. And I know we absolutely will set aside that time, in the very near future when you have time. We'll have a work session for that. We'll set aside an hour or two to go over that. And, Idaho Springs really, I believe, takes this very seriously. Hence, we've gone from 141,000 to the 275,000 because we believe that, frankly, we're in jeopardy, and if we can get better staffing here, the city's better protected. And we have gone far too long, basically at funding at a level of about 1/3 of what other similar foothill locations have been used to being funded at. And, we're playing Russian roulette. I think most of the citizens understand that, or with some outreach, they very soon they will.
Well, our homes are so close together and so many of them are wood.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these old lath and plaster houses, who knows what, wood and whatever else is inside that flatline.
It's very dynamic. You never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you don't. Like, you take a wall down, you're like, oh God, it was, all kinds of things are in there, but it's all very flammable.
Oh, yeah, like newspapers for insulation.
Yeah, well, no, my old house, when I put the roof on it, it had the original cedar shingles on it.
Oh, there you go.
And I was like, oh my God,
Mhm.
thank God my insurance company didn't know. Yeah, but that would have burned like that.
Of course, you're on video now, so
Yes, I
we'll
will.
take care of that.
I know, I'm in trouble with the insurance company. Well, I don't own that house anymore, so.
Well, I guess I would start. There was an article in the Current January or February 15th. I don't know if anybody reads the paper. And it kind of made us look like one of the comments is the gloomy report about the service's full-time staff members, equipment, and current capability. And they're really just, I take offense at that because we have a very strong group of people. We're doing a lot of really good things. And our biggest challenge is finance and the ability to adapt to the change in the demographics and the hit that COVID put on us with housing. For example, today somebody told me they had a house available in Georgetown, 1,400 square feet for $29.50 a month. And I looked at that and said, well, that's so pretty close to what half of my monthly take home. And I'm at the top of the scale. Would have to have 7 people that work for me to go together to be able to afford that, and they'd still be burdened. So
Yeah.
If the housing hadn't hit us so hard and decimated our volunteer staff that we had, used to be very healthy, we wouldn't be deficit spending right now. So
Would you say that your biggest challenge is where to put our volunteers? And would you look at permanent housing or housing when they're on shift or?
affordability and availability.
Okay.
Because if you find something that's available, like this was today, it was pointed out to me, it's like, have this available if any of your people need it. And it's like, we can't afford that. We're paying at the bottom of the pay scale for our industry as it is. So that availability, if something's available, it's expensive. And the cost is just out of reach of most working class people, really. And that's why we don't have a strong labor market in the county. And, it affects us not being able to get volunteers. It affects all organizations throughout the county that rely on volunteers as well.
I thought you had done an excellent job with the old firehouse here in Idaho Springs upstairs, laying out the 4 overnight rooms. Talk about frugal. They thought about existing window cutouts. The windows will be changed for egress type windows, and incorporating the current ventilation in the floor. So there's heat in the room, and it was just really well done. You can see that they really are keeping the budget in mind. So I think that as an alternative to a new $8 or $10 million, firehouse, I applaud the effort over there. I think that's gonna work fine.
But yeah, we're on hold for a new building for a little while until we figure out the financial stuff. We're finding that we're having to spend more money than we expected over there because of code requirements that, me as a code enforcement official, I should have been a little more in tune with that, so. But I was, at the same time, it's just like, wow, it's like what you're having to do with this building across the street with the level of, I forget the technical word, but if we had to do that over there at the fire station, we wouldn't be able to do it. It wouldn't be.
Yeah, sometimes you almost wonder if it's cheaper just to level everything and start new. I mean, it is very, very difficult to renovate these.
To replace that building over there on the site that we didn't have to pay for, would still be close to 6 million.
Yeah.
And that would take all of our reserve funds.
And your plans were not anything grandiose. You're talking about like a metal stand-up building.
Yeah, very basic.
Right.
Keep the cost down as low as possible, but still build something that is gonna last into the future and people will be comfortable, because we have to house people there to have a staff for 24/7 coverage.
Yeah.
And right now, today was our first day of that second shift crew, so from here on out, there's 4 people on 24/7 just for fire response, which 70% right now is medical, so. Then there's 2 captains that work daytime hours. They work 4 times each and they have an overlap day. So that's essentially 5 people for sure there. And then myself and Jeremy, that makes 7. And even though the consulting group doesn't think we should be doing hands-on, we should only be sitting at the desk doing administrative stuff, we are very much hands-on part of that and response crew. And so
I would agree with that, just because I feel like you probably have better experience being hands-on. You can hire someone to handle administrative stuff.
I'm not overloaded, so yeah.
I don't know, I just feel like I would rather see the experience in field work or hands-on work versus back behind the desk, considering we don't have a lot of staff.
Yeah, we spread our administrative stuff efficiently through the 2 captains and Jeremy and myself, and have an administrative assistant that does the payroll and the financial stuff, and she doesn't do response. And then, along with that, we can do 2 in and 2 out, which is a big thing in here with the NFPA, and we would to go along with that, with our training and experience, we don't put ourselves in a situation where we're going to need to rescue somebody. So it's all considered and we're equipped for it and trained for it, but it's not we have to have that immediately right now, because it's been well managed, but time that can change all the time, and we have to be ready for it. And that staffing doesn't include the volunteer shift people that come in, and I think we average right around 2 a day, or 2 per shift, 2 a day and 1 at night. So that's additional volunteers that are here during that time period. And then we still have some very valuable people that have a couple in Idaho Springs and 2 in Georgetown, 1 up in York Gulch. We have 5 of our shift employees live in a fire station, so they're around after hours. Very robust mutual aid setup with Evergreen, Foothills, Central City, East Grand Fire, Summit Fire.
And most of the time I see somebody at the firehouse up in St. Mary's.
Yeah,
So that is.
there's two people living there.
That's good. I'm very comforting to see that.
Yeah. We had someone called in and said, hey, can't get fire insurance because you don't have a full-time paid fire department up here. It's like, yeah, that would have been some good homework.
You know, along those lines, I just got a renewal notice. I don't have a spectacular house. It's insured for $469, and as you know, you can hardly buy anything for $469. So I'm not overinsured. And my insurance just went to $4502. So most of the years I've owned that house is about $700 or $800.
Is it within the city limits?
Yeah, I'm just about a few blocks north of us here.
I'd be curious if your agent or insurance company asked what the ISO rating is.
Well, I actually just wanted to touch with you on that because I think you said we were only 3 points away from a 3, something like that. And for those who would complain that we're going to invest more in a fire authority, for example, let's just say an average house went up $250, and I'm making numbers up. But I would like to see, let's say we got to a 3, what that might do to somebody's insurance rate. I mean, it's one thing if you're given $250 more, but if you're saving $200 or $100 or on insurance, then it may be very narrow wash.
Yeah.
So I'll be curious.
Got some preliminary numbers for that increase. You know, and with the municipalities, you have options of how to pay that. And so the citizens within the municipal city limits may or may not be affected that as much as those out in the unincorporated area.
Right.
So that sheet didn't make it. I have it broken down to where you can see what the mill increase is.
Well, I'm with you, Chuck. My insurance went up $4,000 this year.
It went up an additional $4,000?
Yeah. No change in coverage. I'm probably a little overinsured. That's a fight that I have.
Jeez.
But yeah, 4,000. And I said, I'm fighting with them. And
They don't want to pay out, they want to bring money in.
yeah, but this is a little bit like this is coming to me. This is moving into, you know, this is not just an upcharge. This is like robbery.
Yeah. Well, and they're canceling out on a lot of people because they don't want to pay out, so. It's
Thank
difficult.
you. I have a property in Lawson. 25 years, I have never had a claim of any kind. And American Family gave me a sorry, but we're out of here letter.
Yeah, that's
So-
probably because of the Marshall fire.
Yeah.
Because that, you know, you're in the corridor area, you're probably mostly a moderate wildfire hazard area, but when you bring in the factoring of the houses being so close together and wood fences and possibility of conflagration, they're looking at it quite a bit differently.
And full disclosure, I know credit ratings have something to do with it, and I'm just leveling with you. My credit rating is 850. That maxes out the program. It only goes to 850. So it isn't anything I've done on my end, like not pay my bills and make myself high risk.
This just happened and they said, here's all your same coverage.
That's what I'm
Nothing's
saying.
changing,
So
but here's your new
right,
fee.
Farmer says 4502 now a year on a pretty modest house, and then American Family just, we're out of here. Thanks for being a customer, 25 years, never having a claim, but we're gone.
I'm
So-
USAA, they love, like if you're with them, they're fantastic. They're not fantastic right now though.
Gotcha. And you know, along with the billing, I had a question for you as far as something that maybe cities can do. I noticed in the report, we were lacking, I'm saying Idaho Springs was even lacking on like fire hydrant maintenance. Is there something that we can do as cities to help with that situation? I mean,
I think we've corrected that,
okay,
and we're gonna ask for a reevaluation for ISO, and I think we'll get down to that 3. Either this summer or next spring. We've had discussions with the water departments, and when we got that evaluation, it showed we had points we were losing because of record keeping and testing. And we pointed that out to everybody, and everybody has stepped up to
Oh,
that.
good.
So,
all right, I'm glad to hear that.
yeah. Now, to get down to a 2, that's gonna take a lot of work and money, and I'm not sure.
Would it take like 6 full-time in Georgetown and here or something?
Well, it would take more people, and it would take, we'd have to go over all of the different sections and look at what the points were that we're getting and what we could trim down, or what we could gain by more people or whatever, but we started at a 10 back in '89, which is nice. To a 7 pretty quickly, and we've been working since 2001 to go from a 7 down to a 4 right now,
Right.
which is pretty good with the limited water supply and the all of the other things that go into that, our dispatch system. And
Do they take into account past performance as well? Because I read that article in the current, and I went to the fire authority meeting one, was it last month? Like a 3-hour meeting. And it was sobering, I'm not gonna lie, it was very sobering. But I look at our performance, your performance over the last year and a half during fire season, and all of our fires, considering we are a heavily wooded area, has been very dry. They were taken care of in a very quick fashion, like they weren't allowed to,
yeah,
get out of control and spread.
I'll say we are safely aggressive on wildland fire, and we're able to get on them quickly. And we have, recently we have an engine company with the Forest Service that's typically in the area.
Mhm.
And we have a very strong relationship with the U.S. Forest Service Fire Management Group, and they actually monitor our radio frequency. So if we have something going on, they'll be calling us before.
I thought
we
things were
have
handled very
people.
quickly and very efficiently.
Yeah, I don't want to say we're lucky, I think we've been fortunate. The big event hasn't happened here because so, eventually we're gonna have a big fire.
Yeah.
And we're actually doing a tabletop all day tomorrow for a wildfire at our facility there in Dumont, so. It's gonna be interesting. We're gonna have our second level people do the incident command and management of that so that they can learn and get some experience, but yeah, we've been fortunate, and I think we've done a very good job over the years with what we've had to work with. We're better equipped and trained now than we've ever been. We have quite a few people that have their forestry. We call it a red card. It's what you have to acquire to be able to work on a federal fire at the very bottom level. We have very strong mutual aid. We call Evergreen, and up until, we didn't have any fires last year, but up until that, we called them, we could get 20 people from them within an hour on the bigger stuff, and then it just keeps going from there, so. the biggest lack of people is to attain national standards that are difficult for any fire department in the country to attain. Some of those are just, I think most of them are metro based, and that's what makes them difficult to attain, because most metro departments have millions of dollars to work with.
Right.
And we don't have that, so.
I think we also have it's a tough terrain, or municipalities have, if they caught fire, they would go up quickly. Like, I think we have a more challenging terrain than like when I lived in Baltimore.
Well, you mentioned that Baltimore burns stuff down on a daily basis. And they have, I don't know, probably 100 firefighters available during any time, so.
Yeah.
If you spend any time on YouTube or whatever, there's stuff going on right now that stuff is burning down, even when they're covered by metro departments with a lot of people, so. Fortunately, we don't have a big fire problem here. We've never had a big fire problem. Last year, we had a wind-driven fire up York Gulch, and the structure is still there. They were able to repair the damage, and we still have their house. And that's a long distance away for a response. We had a fire in Georgetown going on 2 years ago, the contents, just a bedroom. That structure is still there. They were able to rebuild that. An unsprinklered building downtown Georgetown, the Lucha restaurant. It's an unsprinklered building. The fire burned for about 5 hours before it was discovered.
Jeez.
There's security footage of it. It's really amazing. But that fire was kept to the basement and the first floor area of that portion of the structure didn't spread beyond, which is
Amazing.
we did good on that with a small workforce in mutual aid, and we're with experience and training and good people in that mutual aid thing, we're in pretty good shape. Obviously, we need more to make, to fill that comfort staffing. We've always needed more people, even when we had a really healthy volunteer base, and there was only me as a paid staff person. We used to have 30 people in Idaho Springs and about 30 people in Georgetown, but that's just all changed. So when COVID hit us, we were experiencing a reduction in volunteers all the way back in 2014. And we started, we built 2 new fire stations back before that. And there's 3 rooms in one on Floyd Hill and 2 rooms in St. Mary's. We knew we were going to need to have housing for volunteers. So we started back then, and we were doing pretty good until COVID, and they just went away. So we had to hire people. Actually, in 21, we put that first shift crew on, so because we weren't getting enough volunteers, and then that's when we started deficit spending on which was a very healthy $6 million reserve fund for capital. Building 2 firehouses. We wanted to build one in Georgetown as well. That was the start of that problem. We actually asked for an increase in that ESD mill levy back. We started asking about that back in 21. So
I think, I wouldn't wish ill on anyone, but these wind-driven events in Maui and Boulder County have been recent, and I think it should be very sobering to folks here that I think we may have to do some outreach with the community just to let them know what jeopardy they have been in. But I think they watch the news and, it's timely as far as, asking for a mill levy increase and or
And that's this year?
Sales tax. I'm sorry.
Will that be this year?
Well, they're talking, it is possible to get it on the ballot, for November. They'll have to
I thought they'd have it by August.
get a move on.
Yeah.
But it's possible.
If we can get everybody able to agree on what to do. The financing is the number one thing, so, or what actually, the number one thing is renewing the current IGA that expires December 31st of this year. There's a clause in that IGA that allows for the parties to the agreement, there's 5, to request that IGA renew for 2 one-year periods. All 5 parties have to agree to it and sign to it. So that's the hard part. I think based on my experience with the group in the courthouse and this study, they're going to insist that we follow the suggestions of the consultants and the fire authority be moved under the direction of the county government. And they're gonna push hard for that, and I think that'll be one of their dig their toes in and say, well, we have to do that in order to raise that mill levy. And I don't, from my seat, I don't think that's a wise move. To go in under the county government would be devastating for what we've built and what we're doing. And we can get into that further with a work session where we can sit and go over stuff.
That's probably a good idea. Also, depending on how it's structured, that would also determine sales tax increase as well. So we
Which you can do. I talked with our attorney and he said municipalities or the county can go to the voters for a sales tax specific to fire. We don't have to be under the county umbrella to do that.
Okay.
And so they, as we sit today, they could do a sales tax and distribute to us without any change to the organizational structure.
I'm glad you asked about that because I'm 90% sure that the county attorney was under the opinion that it had to be under the county to do the sales tax increase. So
that's one of the negatives there. We have our attorney he's been with us for 23 years, specializes in special districts, fire districts, and water districts and such. And there's a big difference of opinion with our attorney and that attorney.
but anyways, I'm glad you asked because it's something for, I think, all municipalities to explore further.
Yeah. So we could all do different levels.
All right. Any questions for Kelly from a staff or council?
Kelly, do you think that counties move to Jeffcom will help gain some points in the communication section for the ISO score?
Very possible it will.
We only need a few points, and I'm thinking we might gain a few points. There are 3 sections for the ISO score that are determined. The main part is the fire structure, the fire department.
The fire readiness and.
Fire readiness and the staffing certainly is a big part of it, the equipment. But then the other 2 are water supply, which we have some control over as a municipality with our hydrant system and our water storage. And then the communications is another section. That's the smallest part, but we could gain a few points there from some of the additional services that Jeffcom offers. That might help us get to that ISO 3 in the next evaluation.
Yeah, that alone could be enough. We're doing some other things, and I think we'll sail into that pretty good. I got one last thing I just point out. As we sit today, with the municipalities all stepping up to increase, and with no increase from the ESD, we're solvent until 2029 with our reserve funds. So that gives us some time to really seriously look at how to increase revenues. If we were to get them to step up and start receiving money next year, so it would take a ballot issue this year, that would extend to 2033.
That's a big jump.
And then if we had everybody go to a 9, and then in 2029, we get up to a 12 mil equivalent with everybody. That makes us solvent way out past 2041. So finding a way to do that increase to where it doesn't cripple everybody and spread it out, I think a sales tax would be the best way for the citizens, because then we get more money from the visitors. And that would make it, I think that would make it more palatable to, when you go, you're out buying stuff, you're paying $5 instead of or whatever it is.
I think that helped with the last one that we passed, that went directly to water, and it had, the burden was shared.
Well,
Not
yeah.
just by citizens, but by other people who were benefiting from
Well,
use of the water. The
well,
same thing comes with
You're
fire.
exactly right. Most of our sales tax is paid by outsiders, people who visit, and of course, they like to dine in our restaurants and wash hands and use restrooms and things, so it was a way for them to participate. I'm sorry to say it failed the first time by a measly 2 votes, so don't ever let anybody tell you your vote doesn't count.
Didn't we rewrite the bill though, like we wrote slightly for
Well,
the second?
I think that there was some better education the second time around. It was more of a concerted effort. There might have been a little bit of wording change, but the second time around, I think it made it by like 60-40.
Well, I would say just because I think people have some fatigue with sales tax and property taxes. And you're not the only entity within the county who is looking at our very small mill levy amounts and how do we raise them.
Mm-hmm.
If you really think you're going to do it this year in the 2024 ballot, like even before you get things going, let's start the concerted, information sharing and education, because I think that's going to be necessary.
I don't see it making it to the ballot this year because it took a year to get the 5 parties to agree to this last IGA. And there was a lot of effort there for the county to get more control over the fire authority during that.
I still might start looking at the education piece of it, because just in the last election round, in talking with people, there is a very strong level of fatigue with how everything is going on. Like, it doesn't matter what category we're looking at, whether it's personal, municipal, county, everyone is feeling that pinch. So there has to be education, or people are going to vote no.
And Lisa, if I could pile on, I think also it has a much lower probability of passing if, and I'm making it up, the library was asking for more, or
That's a possibility
rec center,
too.
and you start having 2 or 3 or 4 entities asking for more. You get this fatigue where it's just check no, as opposed to if it were just one ask, people might seriously, contemplate it, particularly with wind-driven events being in the news, the last couple of years, and how vulnerable we are. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that could be a really key point.
Well, I sit on a couple of different boards and everyone is struggling. Everyone is struggling with budget.
Mm,
And I keep hearing, oh, maybe we should go and ask for a ballot measure. And I'm like, oh my God, there's like 3 right now
Yeah,
that are talking about it. And I'm like, nobody will get anything if we don't all coordinate our efforts
I'm afraid you're right.
and educate so that people understand what it is they're voting for or against.
Yeah, and coordinating is gonna be difficult because there's so much friction between the municipalities and the county. It's not, every municipality has a friction issue of some sort with the county currently. And that's not a cooperative environment. So I think we could market an increase and be successful. Especially if we do a step increase so that it doesn't hurt so much right now. I keep shuffling my paper.
I don't mean to put statistics in your mouth, but I believe the 12 mills was going to be about a $51 increase per 100,000.
That's correct.
So on a $400,000 house valuation, we're looking at a little right around $200. If it's a $500,000
You know,
valuation,
with the way things have been selling, the valuations are a lot higher.
yeah,
2023 really hit with the valuations as far as them being a lot higher. So even that $200 is gonna feel like yet another kick in the kneecap.
mhm,
And right now, that would only be an increase to the unincorporated property owners. The municipal property owners aren't paying
Mm.
a direct.
I would say yes on a step, like,
Yeah, so we would have to educate that as well, is that the municipalities are covering that through the general fund and sales tax revenue or whatever source they choose to pull that out of, so.
well, I think when you're ready to do this, like, that's part of what our responsibility will be,
mhm.
is to help get that information out and educate.
Yeah.
Because none of us want the house to burn down.
Yeah. And, there's, going under the county government to achieve that, I don't see that working well. The fire authority started because we were under the county government for 10 years and it didn't work. So I initiated withdrawal from that agreement. I was the volunteer fire chief in Georgetown at the time. And we weren't getting what we needed out of that organization. That emergency services district was started to provide funding. It wasn't started to bring us all together and be better. It just wasn't. And it was the 4th attempt to start a district for that it finally passed. And it was underfunded at 4.5 mils from the very beginning. And everybody knew that.
Mm.
So we spent 10 years under the county government and I'll just say it was horrible because I was there the whole time. So when I initiated that, the department here was unhappy as well, and they came to council and said, we want out too, which then brought together a group of people to see what we could do to make it better. And the fire authority organization was put together because there's Hooter Fire Authority in Fort Collins, the very big successful authority, and we kind of looked at that model. Longmont at the time was also, I think they're going to retain theirs, but at any rate, we have 23 years of solid progress and movement forward into to where we are right now. And,
Well, I would like to talk further about this during our work session.
yeah,
And we'll try to schedule something very soon,
I'd like to do it sooner.
of course, of course. And we do have one more item. And I just want to make sure we don't, is there anything else that?
The only thing I'd say is the third Monday of this month, which is an off week for us. Of course, we're meeting the first Monday of the month, as we sometimes do for work sessions, but the third Monday of this month, the city offered to host the first outreach meeting about the study that was done. So we're hosting it. It's not our meeting, but the desire is to have outreach meetings on that report in various parts of the county. So we offered to host the first one, the third Monday of this month. So that's in addition to Kelly coming back and speaking with city council in depth about the study and how it impacts our city. This is an opportunity to get some public input and to hear more about the study that was done. So just wanted you all to know that.
I have one more question. If you think that we've gotten points because we switched from our county emergency services, county dispatch services, Jeffcom, doesn't that kind of like put a wrench in the idea of turning the fire authority over to the county? Like if we've gotten a better grade by moving away from county services? Or am I getting too far in the weeds here?
Well, I don't think so. You know, we didn't want to put or jeopardize safety, you know, to try to save a buck. I mean, my compliments to Chief for looking at this. You know, we were able, I think, to not sacrifice safety, but save quite a bit as a city and save even more as a county.
I have had cause to use them in the last week. They were very timely. It was great. They were timely, they were quick. The lady I spoke with was knowledgeable. She was obviously part of the Clear Creek pod. And things happened quickly. I wasn't left waiting.
So, you know, I think sometimes you can look outside of the box in the way that maybe we have frankly been doing things for decades and, you know, get the best of both worlds. Certainly, I think early on, it looks like this is gonna work out all right. And I look forward to Kelly coming back and talking more about this specific topic, and hopefully we have a full house with council at that point too.
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear what you're prioritizing and what you're doing.
And Janine, we have an extra one of these books. I already had one at the house. So I think I put it back like on Wonder's desk.
I mean, I have it.
Oh, you do have one too?
That's the assessment, right?
We did send a copy of the report out to all council members.
Yes.
Right, yeah, there's additional hard copy like that floating around too.
And also
I
the
could
IGA.
print one out for you if
Yeah.
you want as well.
But that was a really good report.
No, 145 pages.
Yeah, right.
But just as a closing, there's stuff in here that we were already doing that got overlooked. There's stuff that we started doing while this was going on. There's stuff in here that we can't do. We can't take funding from the ambulance for going on the same call.
Well, that's something we discussed at that meeting, if that was possible.
Yeah, there's stuff in here that most everything in here costs money. So an increase, a significant increase in expense to attempt to meet standards, you know, like fire trucks, replacing fire trucks at 10 years old, that's a metro-based thing.
Yeah.
I could show you our 10-year-old trucks and you'd be going, well, that looks like it's brand new. So stuff like that gets suggested in here that we will put at the back of the list of what we think is important. And there's a bunch of it in there.
Can we go over that too? Like what are you doing? What have you done?
Yeah.
What can you not
that's what I'm
do?
curious.
And what do we need to, because of our unique situation, what maybe needs to go to the back of the line?
Yeah,
At our
we'll
work
have
session?
priorities. We're working on that for our board. And I'm hoping to have that ready. I have a work session with Empire tomorrow and a work session with Georgetown on Wednesday.
Okay. We're making the rounds.
Yeah,
This is your municipal week.
Yeah, I'm doing my best to show that, you know, even though we're challenged, you're not uncovered, and we're doing the best we can to keep moving forward and do a good job for you.
Well, Kelly, thank you very much.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you
Really
very much.
appreciate it, and look forward to your next visit too.
Okay.
So we have one final item on the work session, and that is about block 57 and the housing project update. Jonathan, I'll kick it over to you.
Well, you know, it's kind of good in a way that we put this third, because you heard about some of the challenges we have around affordable housing and that conversation.
Yes.
We talked about this on February 12th when we had our housing update in general, and I told you guys about 4 points and some challenges that they've had over the last year or so, just kind of getting the project across the finish line with the EPA and some unexpected expenses that they've had. During that work session, you directed us to go ahead and start talking to them about what it would look like if we invested in their project and what we might be able to get out of it. And so we have done that. We have a couple ideas that could work, and we also have a couple of requests for direction. I thought what I'd do is maybe talk about the request for direction first, and if you guys have questions, I can answer them. But specifically, we've talked about 2 separate sets of deed restrictions right now, and there may be a possibility to expand that later. But I think for now, these are probably the most reasonable. The first would be, at the meeting, we talked about our ARPA dollars. We have 480,000 left. And we talked about allocating 400,000 of that 480,000 to purchase 15 deed restrictions, or to purchase deed restrictions. And what they had offered in their letter is 15 deed restricted units in perpetuity, which means forever, which is great, at 120% AMI, which is actually a reduction in the rent. It's pretty good for what we're trying to do here for middle income
What is
housing.
our AMI,
Yeah,
Denver
what is-
AMI?
What does that actually mean, like dollars?
So it does, well,
We
it's a
get
little.
lumped in with Denver, and I don't think that
Mm.
that's
Well,
appropriate.
Well, we wouldn't in this deal
Okay.
because this isn't a LIHTC deal, so we're not required to follow MSA standards in Denver. So what we would do is we'd be able to set that deal in a contract, and basically we could say what that means. So typically speaking, our AMI, if you look at census data, is like 62,000. But if you look at like actual data, it's probably closer to like 42 to 45,000. So we're talking about probably rents from the $900 to $1,100 range for a studio, up to probably about 26 to 2,800 for a 4-bedroom that's like intended to be shared. So this is definitely middle income housing. It's not at the lower end of the scale, but it still would significantly benefit the city to have that middle income housing. We're gonna have like something lower than market rate for the most part here. And 15 units goes a long ways to like solving some of the issues we've had. We've already deed restricted over 40, and adding 15 more like this is gonna take some pressure off
So
some
they
other
have the
housing
deed
too.
restriction for 40 already?
No, that's like at housing at Riverbend.
Oh,
So
Riverbend,
I'm just talking about like that's some of the lower end, so that goes all the way down to like below 40% AMI. So this is like more in the middle piece, which we also need. It's kind of a weird thing, is you need both. And this is still negotiable as the other thing. So what we were talking about is this a deal that you guys would be willing to do, the 15 for 400,000? And if you look at kind of like what we looked at a couple different communities, and a lot of times Summit County is a little bit different because Summit County does big money for certain kinds of deed restrictions, but like communities that are similar to us, $30,000 for an accessory dwelling unit or for a deed restriction is actually relatively low. This is coming in at 28,000. So based on what we're actually spending for these deed restrictions, the number of 15 is probably pretty good. The 120% AMI, I think we would all love it to be a little bit lower, but I think
Yes.
reasonably, this is probably what it needs to be to make the project feasible.
Well, but whatever, I would like to see whatever, the 900 to 1,100 for a studio, you know, maybe 1,300 for a 1-bedroom, that's where I'd like to see it sit, whatever that sits in our AMI, because that's below market value for this area and what people could actually afford, if you're not looking at just that AMI of our area of 42,000.
Yeah, that's probably what we're talking about with this 120, but that's negotiable in the contract, so we could look at that a little bit further. What the challenge is, you don't wanna like, it's difficult to, especially in a perpetuity restriction, you can't just say it's gonna be $900.
Oh, no, but I mean, just
But-
like from an AMI, like
Yeah.
what does that 900 to 1100 look like
That's in the,
in our AMI
we'd be in that
percentage?
probably close to 120 range. It's probably about what we're talking about. So it is a reduction from market rate just because of our area.
And I don't mean to be hammering at you, but we're giving them something. I want us to really get something good.
Yeah.
That benefits our community. Yes, we have to spend those dollars, but I want to get the best bang that we can for our community.
And I want to agree with you, and a little yardstick to measure by, I thought they got a pretty good deal. We had a Denver council person just recently tell us that they were able to buy 100% AMIs at $30,000 a unit. And when you consider how much it cost you to, build an affordable unit, to be able to buy it down and succeed and get you in your target for only 30 grand. I just thought that was a pretty good deal. So this at 28 is kind of in the ballpark, so I'm just saying, we're not that far out of the metro area, so it
No,
seemed to me that it was a pretty good bang for the buck.
But we're also like, I'm following the idea that development pays for itself.
Mhm.
In this, we're actually helping development pay for a situation that we didn't create, they didn't create, it just happened. Like, it sucked, this delay for a year, but it happened. So we're helping them to fund themselves and through our funding. So I feel like we should be getting a good deal.
And Lisa, I will even be meaner than that, much meaner.
Oh, good, because I was feeling a little mean.
No, I mean a heck of a lot meaner.
Then I'm bringing it.
Because I am also very cognizant of the fact that we get 120 units on that football field. It may not be 4 points. Maybe they go under, maybe they're insolvent. But somebody will pick up the baton and they will build those 120 units, albeit at a lower debt level. Now, here's the problem. If they're able to build those 120 units at a lower debt level, they may not entertain a rent reduction at all. They might be, hey, I'm sorry, folks, but it's market rate all the way. We don't need lower rents here. We've got debt service and profit with a major P on our mind. So I'm just saying, although that's a meaner way to look at things, it's like a Darwinistic way of evolution with housing. But I am saying that even keeping that in mind, we have an opportunity here to succeed with our affordable numbers at $28,000 a unit is probably a pretty good buy.
Well, and I will say too, just from the mean standpoint, they can come in with profit in mind all they want, but we're seeing that with some of our smaller units, the studios and 1 bedrooms, and they are going for profit, and those are sitting empty. So, we can say here, this is market value, but people can't afford it.
Right.
I don't want to have units that are sitting there, and the ones that are sitting there empty are nice units, they're nicely done, but they are too expensive, and I don't want that to happen. And have people not be able to use it and us not be able to use the housing that we need.
And by the way, on that subject, the new units around Georgetown Lake are just eye-poppingly expensive.
And they're not renting either, and they're not in good shape, like. Anyway.
How does the potential grant funding play into this at all, or is that more in
Yes.
regards to the other?
It's another piece of it.
Yeah.
And essentially what we're trying to do, there's a couple of things that need to happen. One, they need to get to the point where they can build so that they can actually, because right now what they're basically doing is carrying costs that are really expensive because they haven't been able to build. So once they break ground, that starts their clock where they can actually do what they need to do from a financial perspective to make all this work. So what we could do is we could apply for the stronger, I'll skip ahead a little bit here, but there's a Stronger Communities grant that could be used to supplement this project a little bit and maybe achieve some other city goals. Like we might be able to invest in childcare or senior housing or any of these things that we've talked about a little bit, building infrastructure around exit 240 to connect the south side of the town a little bit better. But that doesn't open until July. And so that can be up to a $4 million ask. We're likely to not get $4 million. I think we need to talk to Bill a little bit more and see. Last time the program got a little oversubscribed and we were the first finalists out. So this time we anticipate being a finalist for the project because we hit all of the boxes. So potentially what we could do, there's a couple ways we could do this. So the first piece is that ARPA funding. And so what I really need direction on is, are we comfortable with using that ARPA dollars? And the other thing about ARPA to remember is we have to use it by 2026 or we give it back. And we don't really have any projects I like set up. We had talked about saving $80,000 for the senior housing. That is a good thing to do, but we may not be able to use it if we can't get that project moving quickly.
This is the one over by the cemetery?
Yeah, because it has to be encumbered basically by,
2026.
well,
Right?
yeah,
Because we have to
totally.
commit the funds
It has
this
to be
year.
committed this year and
and
spent by 26.
Yeah.
So there's some really big time things here. And so using this money on a shovel ready project is kind of a good thing. Now, with the grant application, what we could do potentially is, we've talked about, this is another thing I need direction on, is we could delay their water and sewer tap fees, which council seems open to when we talked about it on the 12th. And what that would mean is they're still required to pay all of their water and sewer tap fees, so you can't get out of it. And it's about $567,000. But what we could do is delay that as long as council feels comfortable with, really, in return for more deed restrictions. So what we could do is say, hey, we're gonna delay your water and tap fees for 3 years. And Dylan and I have had some initial conversations about, we wouldn't wanna just maybe set a deed restriction for 3 years, because it doesn't really benefit many people. We could say 10 to 15 years, because the other 15 would be in perpetuity. So we could say, they had proposed, of course, this is a negotiation, and they had proposed 7 in that letter, because that gets us to 22. Well, there's reason. It's not,
I know,
yeah,
but-
this, we can't pay nothing to get deed restrictions. We have to be a little bit reasonable in this conversation too, because of the way because they have to keep a feasible project, I guess is what I'd say. But what we-
Because it drives down their ability to make
Yeah.
their debt service.
Right, and we
Make their
don't,
payment.
we don't want this to fail in that way either. So what we've got to do is think about how many more deed restrictions could we get? And could we set it for like 10 or 15 years on the other ones? Or say contingent upon paying all water, sewer tap fees or whatever. And this is stuff that we can put in the contract. That's what I'm asking. And it's Lisa, what you're saying is something we need to like account for in these conversations.
Well, 22 takes care of our proposition
Right.
1, 2, 3
Mhm.
requirements,
Yes.
so that would wipe us
Right.
off. And that's why I figured they did the 15 and the 7, because they knew what our requirements
Right.
are, so that's an appealing number for us.
Right, but that also, when you look at averages for what a deed restriction costs in the range of what we're talking about, it's a little bit much for 120 AMI, which is where I think kind of where I was going with this is that parameters, I put in the thing, parameters for the proposed delay in water and sewer tap fees in exchange for additional deed restrictions, including thoughts on the duration and structure of that agreement. So what are we comfortable, if you were to let them do that, and if this goes to your development pays its own way thing, those fees have to be recovered by the city. Now, one option would be is maybe we could recover them through the Stronger Communities grant. But another way we could do it is just say, like, you're getting a 10-year deed restriction and we're getting another 15 or 20 units or whatever.
I have opinions, but I'll shut up and let other people
Mhm.
offer before I say anything
No,
else.
that was my question. I was just wondering how the grant funding was playing into it.
Yeah.
So that would be an option of, so it's not that they wouldn't pay back their tap fees. It would come from the grant.
Potentially, but then the other thing about a grant is that we'd have to structure the deal also, because it's not a certain funding source. If that was what we wanted to do, they would still need to be responsible for the tap fees if we didn't receive that
Well,
grant.
Stephanie's letter
Exactly.
doesn't say anything about
Yeah.
the grant, and I'm okay with that, like, I feel like the grant can be a separate piece of this. What I wanna see is, okay, we give you the 400,000 from our ARPA fees, here's what we want for that. We delay your tap fees, here's what we want for that, like, those are 2 pieces. And now that extra Stronger Together grant, is that what it is, the
Stronger communities. yeah.
Stronger Communities grant, that is a 3rd piece of it, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with sectioning this out into, we give you A, you give us A, and I don't know, like, is that unfair?
It's not unfair. In fact, I was telling Stephanie when she was here, I did not feel that council would be comfortable backstopping the grant or guaranteeing.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's
no,
no way to
So-
do.
there's no way to guarantee the grant,
Right,
so
right. So
Yeah.
I did let her know that.
I would rather piece this out.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. If the grant comes through, great. If it doesn't, we're not funding. So
We still have something that they get what they need and we get what we
yeah,
need.
Lisa, that's exactly right.
And delaying their tap fees too is a significant benefit to them, because they can get they can get out of these carry costs that they have because they can actually like get this first building going and then moving forward on some of these projects. So I think that not in a lot of ways, council's in the driver's seat. What I would say is just be aware that we want the project to be successful financially. So there's probably a balancing point where I think it's probably possible that they would consider 100% AMI on some of these at least, or maybe all of them, depending on the funding, but it's just like it's a weird balance for us because we have to make sure they stay feasible, but we also have to get the most possible.
Here's where I might be the mean one. I would be happy to see that 15 units capped at 120%. I'd be happy to see that 100% in perpetuity. And then the 7 units also capped at 100% for 15 years with however you want to structure the repayment of the tap and sewer fees. But I would be willing on those first 15 units that are capped in perpetuity to go up to like 115. Because I do want to see them succeed. It's not that I don't want to see them succeed, but I don't want to see the city, handing over money and we're not getting what we need for our citizens, because that's our job.
Now on the tap fees version, the 7 units I think is also a negotiable. So if we're
I'd
getting
like to see
15 for
10.
400, it seems like 7 for 5, even though it's a shorter deed restriction, there may be some room to play
Yeah,
there.
I think.
I could say 14. I would be 14 or 15, so that we ended up with 25 units. I'd be fine with that.
No, I just want, there's a public good in having this project, right, and having it work, so it's like, what are they willing to negotiate without,
Well, this is
totally
the first,
going under
these
and
are the
nothing else
first
to do
numbers.
it. No, I know, I guess, yeah, that it's like, what are those numbers?
And
That's where we need to be.
I do like the idea of the ARPA funds, because this is a shovel-ready project, so we can devote majority. We're discussing 400 of the 480, and we've committed it, and we know that we could have outlaid it, right, or spent it by the 2026, so we won't lose it. And the beauty that Jonathan put in his report is that is not a cost to our citizens.
No,
So it's a way to achieve a goal, without a burden.
I think that's.
even the tap fees are not an overall cost to our citizens. Yes, it will affect us on a yearly basis that we're not getting that tap fee in. But I think it is totally balanced by the fact that we can get 7 to 14 or 15 deed restricted apartments.
Well, sure, and to even take it a little bit further, it does help when we have, say, 1,100 taps in the city. If we have 120 more join us with the water billing, that
That
actually,
brings us that,
but because we have our fixed costs covered, for that additional 120 units, we don't have to hire additional water folks or sewer plant folks. We have more than enough capacity at the plant, so maybe we use a smidge more on the chemicals, but I'm saying that absolutely will help our ability to
and
keep
then when
costs
we do
down,
pay it, it will go into the water fund.
right?
which,
So
helps.
there is a benefit even in the meantime.
You said something about, I don't have it in front of me, what the deed restriction targets would be, or the type, is that something we would just decide?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
kind of the benefit of this deal is that we don't have to work off HUD standards. So we could create a structure that works for Idaho Springs.
For our actual Idaho Springs
Yeah, so-
numbers.
I think that's the thing that's gonna be interesting about this is just how we manage these deed restrictions. Dylan and I had also talked a little bit about, should we require city employees and residents to get right of first refusal on units or something like that, which is something they do in Summit County.
I don't see how you would deed restricted and not
Right.
have it either be required to be occupied by someone who lives in the city or county, or at least you give
What about working in the city or county, not
That's-
currently living?
Yeah,
Because it would
that's what I
allow
mean,
people to move in,
yeah.
people working in the community,
Yeah,
because there's a lot of people, if you live here already, but you commute to Denver, it doesn't benefit our workforce to have.
No, and Dylan, I appreciate
That's the
that.
key
You of
thing.
all people who've seen that firsthand.
So
This would also help with maybe some of what Chief was, Kelly was talking about with how do we have, maybe we have one apartment that is our fire apartment.
Yeah, because I know Summit County is doing that, or working in a nonprofit, they're putting stuff aside for nonprofit workers because people who work at nonprofits can't afford.
Well,
So or the schools are, just designating those
the
types
key
of.
one with Summit County for for the nonprofits is that Summit County and Breckenridge all know the units.
Mhm.
So they can say, we're going to, no matter what the cost is, it's going to this, whereas
Gotcha.
part of this would have to be. I assume 4 Points would still manage it, and our side of things would be. Enforcement to ensure that, the lease is to someone who works in town, they have pay stubs, all of that.
Well, we need to
because
manage
we're not
enforcement,
managing.
because that's one of the problems that we have as far as our, our housing restrictions, and like, my concern would also be, how is this enforced?
So here's the other fun part about this, and this is a bigger
Are you
conversation.
being facetious?
No. But, so we've had a lot of conversations about creating a multi-jurisdictional housing authority that could regionally address some of the challenges we have with housing. And I think that there may be an opportunity for that organization to manage properties like this and deed restrictions like this in Riverbend. And that could potentially be a revenue source for that organization, so it can stand on its own a little bit more effectively. And also it gives us some additional capacity to manage these issues.
That's huge.
So that's one of the reasons why I think an MJHA is a really good idea for us, is because it gives us that all-time quarterback person.
Mhm.
But that's something that's probably a little ways off. So I think at the beginning,
It can help fill those spots. too.
Yeah.
I think really the best thing would be to say these 15 units have to be occupied by someone who works either in the county or in the city in perpetuity.
Mhm.
Like it can't be rented to someone else.
I would 1000% support that.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
those are the people that have a hard time
It is.
in this city and in this county.
so I guess that's ultimately what I was asking. It sounds like, I guess just in this conversation, we don't have everybody here, but we might like, it sounds like you guys might like that AMI on those ARPA dollar ones to be down a little bit if we can. And so maybe what we could do is because that's really where we're looking, is for a little bit more negotiation guidance. So maybe we could try to see if we can negotiate that down a little bit. And then on the tap fees one, it sounds like are you guys comfortable with a 10 or 15-year restriction? Is that
I'd like a
Oh,
15.
Yeah, I mean, certainly let's ask for 15.
Yeah.
Maybe
Until we
we,
get a few
maybe,
more units.
maybe we get 10, but hey, maybe we do get more units.
okay? Well, maybe I'll ask for that, or we'll just see where that conversation goes, but I'll just say that we'd like to have that
Well, these are
conversation.
beginning numbers, so
Yeah.
to me, this is just a
I agree.
starting place.
I agree with you.
There's some room, like, this indicates there is room for negotiation.
I think so.
And I think they've been there's been a lot of room for discussion with this group anyway.
Yeah, they've been pretty good on this whole thing. They're being very forthcoming, and I think we're all on the same page here, wanting to create a good thing. And then I guess the other thing, the Stronger Communities Grant, it sounds like you guys would like to handle that. That would be just a separate thing that we have to figure out.
I think
we
in
have to-
all fairness, it
Do you
should.
have to write for something specific?
I already wrote a grant for it,
Oh,
so
all right.
it's like
It's like
we
waiting
probably
for
need to
that
just update it a little bit and make it clean and like for current things, but I've already talked to Dola about it and I know that we're gonna score well on it. There's some questions I have about, you score better if there's childcare related to it, and there are some childcare needs that are happening in the immediate vicinity here. So I think one of the things we wanna do is coordinate a little effort to see if we can just make a really strong
Is this like
application.
the pre-K?
Yeah, and it's not a sure thing, but I think that there's a possibility that we could.
Ooh, investigate that one
Yeah.
carefully.
Well, I think there's some opportunities that I guess is what I'll say. So, and the grant like provides that kind of framework. So I think we can look at that a little bit, and then we can tell them if we get the Stronger Communities Grant, that would be a conversation we'd have, because it's also dependent on what the award would be and all that kind of stuff.
But I think if we're writing a grant for them, with them in mind as the beneficiary, there needs to be further negotiation.
Yeah, I agree. And especially if it's a larger sum of money.
Well,
and
if it's
then-
$1 million or more, like, that's a healthy.
Oh, yeah.
amount.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last one would be just on other conditions for if we did a deed restriction, it sounds like we needs to work city and county.
Yes.
And we, like nonprofit would be okay, I think.
Well, I just think like those core jobs.
Yeah, the
like,
people you need.
The people you need, I think more like the fire
Okay.
teachers or,
EMTs,
yeah, I don't know.
city workers, maybe there's city people that can't get
Yeah,
in
yeah,
here.
yes.
But yeah, at least somebody who works in the boundaries, but maybe you do a right of first refusal for that, and if not, you can rent it to
Well, city,
Somebody
county,
wants to
and then go out. Like, let's look at the city first, because, we know, you've talked to businesses in the city. They're like crying because they don't have anywhere for their workers to be.
Of course.
In our service industry. So I would be totally okay for service industry as well, because service industry folks struggle.
Did Summit County own that unit on Huron Landing?
Um, They either own it or they have exclusive right to it.
Then Summit County just did this interesting thing where they have like a transitional unit for when people get a job in Summit County but don't yet have housing and they can live there for like up to a year.
Interesting.
Yeah, they basically did it where the first 3 months, it was half price, so like $850 a month. And then
Gotcha.
you could stay for up to either 6 months or a year, but the rest would be
Hmm.
1,700 for a 2-bedroom.
Which is actually pretty
That
reasonable.
is, yeah, that's really good.
Then you have to leave
And
after that.
sometimes they put like two people in it, someone from Public Works and someone from the library or
Yeah.
something, but.
Another thing we could contemplate with the deed restrictions that a lot of places do now is they allow income averaging, because it's allowed by Colorado law.
Oh, yeah.
So that means like if I take an 80% AMI, that means that I can average out to like a certain level. Like, so if I say overall, they need to average to 113 or whatever it is.
And that's
You can go
really,
above and below.
that's the way it should be.
Yeah, because that way you could maybe even help, you could be lower, but you also could be a little bit higher. Maybe.
Right.
But
I think it's okay for you to go in there, fair but stern.
okay. Well,
I
like I
think
said,
that's
they've been very nice about this. They're, obviously they're looking for help, but I think that ultimately it's in our best interest to get quality housing right there. And even if it's like middle market housing, I think it's still gonna help the community because it's gonna reduce some pressure on some of our other units too. And I think it's gonna be a good reason. I mean, having at least even 15 in perpetuity, that's better than Riverbend is too. Because Riverbend's not in perpetuity either. So that would be something that's here for a long time, which would be great.
Well, and in perpetuity and after they sell it, because if you remember, they said
10 years.
10 years, they will do a 10-year commitment and then they can sell it. I want that to be able to pass.
Right.
To whomever.
Right, 10 years, it makes sense to have the deed restriction for those other, however many, 10 years, if that's what it's tied to as well. That, at least they're on the hook for it.
Be willing to
Yeah,
get
certainly
it.
would have to run with it.
Well, that plays into the opportunity zone, the tax
Because they're
benefits.
also using the opportunity zone funding for
That's,
this.
yeah, they're definitely taking advantage of the opportunity zone.
But I think the fact that we have a city staffer who already has a grant ready to go,
Mhm.
has already done some of the legwork with DOLA,
Yep.
that is invaluable for this project. So it's okay for us to ask for a little more.
Okay, well, I think our next steps as staff is to bring this back to them and hopefully we can come up with an agreement. And then I think we need to figure out the legal framework. And then that would need to come back to council for approval. So I think that would be our next steps unless you guys have anything you'd like to add.
No, and I don't feel like I'm being a hard person because I actually like 4 points. I've been watching people try to develop this thing for, I don't know,
Yeah.
how many years, and they've all been,
Mhm.
they're not here. And I think 4 points is a good company, but if we're giving quite a bit, they need to give also.
Yep.
That sounds great. Well, thank you guys for the feedback.
All right.
Well, thank you for the legwork with this.
Thank
and
you, everybody.
for setting this up.